Hi, welcome to the video. My name is Dychronic, and today I'm taking a look at the Xur, his inventory, his random rolls, his location, and of course my recommendations for August 12, 2022. You can find the Xur in his regular spot in the tower. Just make your way into the top left section of the hangar, and the Xur is right here next to the railings. It's next to the edge of the thing. Oh, these mountains are beautiful. Bob Ross would be proud. Apparently these are from the 9, and this is the high-level inventory. High level? Oh, you get it. First up today for the exotic weapon, we have the Monte Carlo. In my opinion, one of the better weapons in the game because what it does is it allows you to get your melee very easily, especially considering that it's just damage and not kills, where kills actually give you a bigger bonus as well. On top of that, it also has like an advanced grave robber and swashbuckler in one, where you can actually get more damage from melee and stuff, which just makes it a good weapon as well. On top of it being a 600 RPM auto rifle, which is usually my favorite. The only downside is the range at 50 is a little low, but that usually doesn't matter because you're really depending on getting that ability stuff going to get your other abilities, and that's the whole point of this weapon. To be honest, not much more to it. You get abilities, it's easy, you don't require a kill to get it going. Is that a Kalashnikov? Oh my god, look at these freaking ornaments. And it's nice. I recommend it. Up next for the Hunter Exotic, we have the Mechanier's Trick Sleeve. This one is all about sidearms. You get increased ready speed, reload speed while you're critically wounded. Swapping to a sidearm increases the damage, and a large benefit to airborne effectiveness stats for sidearms. Now, there's a couple things here to digest. First of all, most of the time, sidearms don't really need ready and reload speed. It can help time to time, but it's not a big deal. Furthermore, getting more damage, usually you'd rather just have a shotgun. You don't really necessarily need this, and being critically wounded is not something you want to depend on. Now, the big thing about this that I think is interesting is, first of all, we have the new Trespass, which is nice. We have the Forerunner, which is a special ammo version, which is actually much better with this. And of course, mid-air accuracy is always a nice thing to have, and it also improves the handling with certain weapons that have poor handling, like Devil's Ruin. So there are a few uses for this, but I don't really use this very much at all. As far as the stats go, 59 is pretty low. High mobility with some intellect and discipline is not a bad distribution, but no resilience and recovery makes me a little bit worried. Following that, for the Titan Exotic, we have the Antaeus Wards. Wow, that total is even worse. Essentially, you have improved slide, which means you slide farther. Sliding after sprinting for a short time reflects incoming projectiles, and short time is the same as the shoulder charge, so it's about like a second and a half. Overall, this is not a bad exotic, especially in PvP. You can reflect a lot of projectiles very easily. This used to be a ridiculously overpowered exotic, where they made it so you have to have a short time before you can activate it, but it's still something that can be used, although not the best Titan exotic. As far as the roll goes, 57 is obviously well below the average I would like. High mobility, recovery discipline is decent with this exotic, but you could definitely do better. Up next for the Warlock Exotic, we have the Phoenix Protocol. Let me just say, I have this ornament for it that makes it look very nice. And this exotic is actually, it's hard to say. It used to be at number 1 or top 3 for a really long time because Well was ridiculously overpowered. And now Well does not give you an overshield, which doesn't mean that Well isn't good. Well is still a great option for PvE, but not nearly as good as it was before. And furthermore, all of these super generating exotics like this only go to 50%, which is not a bad thing. You know, getting half your super back means you can use it twice as often. And the Well is something that's really nice. And honestly, I probably would say top 15, maybe even top 20 for Warlock Exotics is something that's still really nice. That being said, there are probably a bunch of other way better exotics like Starfire Protocol for Solar. As far as the roll goes, high intellect is nice for this exotic. High mobility is the opposite of what you want for Solar, because you want the Icarus Dash stuff, and then strength is kind of meh, because melee on Warlocks is not nearly as good as it used to be, so kind of a terrible roll. Moving on, let's take a look at the legendary weapons. First up, Lonesome, Precision Frame Sidearm. Somewhat of a fan favorite, although this perk setup is not the best. Some range, some high caliber round stuff, which is okay, but I personally prefer the 3 burst or 2 burst. Following that, a 450 auto rifle, hipfire with rangefinder, kind of opposite of each other. Some other good stuff in here as well, stability and range stuff, maybe, but personally don't like 450s. After that, a Grid Skipper, probably one of the better pulse rifles in the game. Heating Up and Snapshot, not a bad combination. Ricochet, Range Masterwork, and these are okay. Definitely say this was a decent roll. Could be better though. Following that, Totally in Trouble, really not a big fan. Very poor stats for base. Has Assault Mag, Threat Detector, Outlaw, not really what you're looking for, and Reload Masterwork, definitely not. After that, we have the True Teller, which is Blinding Grenade, Grave Robber, Disruption Break. I believe this can have auto loading plus Vorpal. It has Spike Grenades and Blinding Grenades though, so if you just want the Blinding or Spike Grenades as an option, look at that, plus 95 blast radius. It is an okay thing to do, although these two perks are very, very meh. Following that, we have an Interference 6, which is a Clown Cartridge Swashbuckler. Does not have spike grenades, and furthermore, it can do auto-loading plus full court and spike grenades. So there's definitely a lot better rolls for this. It's one of the best grenade launchers for the heavy in the game. And finally, we have the Star and Shadows, which is a quick draw elemental capacitor. Elemental capacitor could be pretty good depending on what you want it to do, especially if you go for the arc one, because the handling on this is very, very piss poor. And this handling on the 340s is the biggest problem. So having quick draw and having the ability to pretty max out your handling is a good option, although I'd like to see a lot more range in here. Not a bad roll. Following that, let's take a look at the different Warlock options for the armors. First of all, a 60 roll, resilience, mobility, discipline, strength. Okay, could be better. 61 mobility, not a big fan of mobility on Warlocks. 61 is okay. 60 with high resilience and strength, definitely better, and high resilience and 62, probably one of the better options if you have recovery to compensate. And of course, we also have the exotic weapons. First up, we have Hawkmoon with Snapshot Sight. Snapshot's not a bad option, although again, I still like Rangefinder. This does not have recoil direction, and this does not have recoil direction, so not personally my favorite. Following that, we have the Dead Man's Tale, 4 times the charm. I personally like either moving target or Vorpal here, and the rest is fairly much up to you. Although I like the high caliber rounds, it works pretty well in PvP. And following that, there are a number of incredible ornaments I would recommend. I'm not just flexing my ornaments, I promise. It's just, I think it's so cool, and I never get to use it. And of course, if you did not know, every exotic engram you ever get, including the ones from the Xur, will be guaranteed to be an exotic you've never seen before, and it comes out as a high stat roll. And you can tell I recently got one of these. That's unfortunate. Oh hey, exotic cipher. Yeah, if you have nothing to use them on the exotic archive, more of these useless exotics. And of course, a big shout out to my patrons on Patreon. Specifically, big shout out to Mom, Dad, Postulons, and Box Worlds, Monday, Bachmanus, Unipanther, Casey Reagan for their support on Patreon. And that's it. If you guys did enjoy, my name's Dychronic, and I'll see you guys on the next one.